Well, first and foremost, again, I want to thank everyone for not only joining this session, but any other sessions that you've joined. Dom, Justin, myself, we are so thankful and excited on the turnout that we've seen throughout October for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. As Justin said, this isn't going to be the last. You're going to see a lot of these things. We're going to be starting to create a lot more content, a lot more webinars targeted both for customers, for partners, really just education. But to dive in, as Justin mentioned, today we're going to be starting with talking about MDR, managed detection and response, and making sense of the noise. So let's dive right in, everyone. So let's recap. As you guys know, I joke around about some of the graphics that I use. I kept this one in from one that I used a couple weeks ago because understanding a lot of the top attacks is very important, and it's going to be kind of top of mind as we're tying all this together. But I wanted to recap. What we've done over these last 3 sessions and today has been very targeted. We wanted to have these in the order that we did it for a specific reason, because this is how, and you guys have heard me say it, you build your cybersecurity posture. This is how you address security, not only if you're a 5 to 10 person accounting firm, or if you're a 5,000 person logistics company. You need to understand all of these points because this is the world we live in today. All right. NDR, network detection and response, understanding what is happening inside the network. XDR, looking beyond just traditional antivirus ransomware. You need to understand what's happening on the devices, but more, bringing that information together. Dom did an amazing job last week talking about SD-WAN and SASE. Looking at the edge, looking at those networks and securing them, right? Zero trust, helping to understand that you do need that level of understanding of security to even talk about wireless networking. And then today, we want to talk about managed detection and response, or MDR. And I apologize in advance for some of the acronyms, but I'll try to keep them at a minimum. But basically, what we want to talk about from an MDR perspective is taking all of the alerts, taking all the noise, and turning it into actionable information. I always use that term, actionable information, because where something could be a threat, a non-threat, if it's actionable, you can still review it and look into it and take action. So let's look at things, right? Modern detection. What are some of the challenges that we're seeing from our polls, from our research? SOC teams are just getting so many alerts. Yes, you could have a SIM tool, you could have a SOAR, you could have a log aggregator that's going to bring it all together. If you're very advanced, you could have something that's correlating that information, but that's what you need. Not just the advanced security companies need that correlation. Everyone needs that correlation. Otherwise, it just becomes noise. Way back when, we used to call it shelfware, where you didn't have time to use a tool or an appliance, and it just collected dust on the shelf. Unfortunately, we're still seeing that with SaaS applications today. And with the change of cost, now instead of just a one-time cost, you're wasting that monthly cost, and we don't want that. You need to have tools that's going to bring the data together so that these teams aren't just getting so much noise. 24/7. We hear that all the time. That is the gold standard. That's something that everyone wants to strive to. But most companies can't do that with the limited resources that they have. So they need to outsource. But they need to outsource to a company that's actually going to do that versus they could just say, well, we're monitoring everything 24/7. No, you need someone that's going to monitor and potentially take action. All right. And all this turns into that alert fatigue. Can't speak today, but we're good. Delayed response. That's what I'm going to focus in on in a couple of these slides. All right. And that all leads to the risk level increasing. Quick sip of coffee. So why do traditional MDRs fall short? And what should they actually deliver? A lot of MDR vendors talk about monitoring, talk about actually just ingesting the information, understanding it, and not taking action or managing the threats. All right. When you're talking about ransomware, ransomware is not cleansed with a single action. There is no single action that you can take to cleanse a ransomware outbreak. Even if you run a security scan on the endpoint, it quarantines the device. That is not the end of a true ransomware remediation. And these are things that a lot of security teams, a lot of infosec teams might not have the information just due a lack of education and resources. And when you're outsourcing this to an MDR vendor, you want them to be able to do this for you. So you need to be able to do this and trust who you're bringing in. That's why I have here that second bullet. A lot of times customers are left to do this themselves, and we don't want that. Delayed triage, delayed remediation, delayed action. This is how spreads happen. This is how a 4-hour issue turns into a 3-day issue. A lot of times when you're talking about tools like backup, disaster and recovery and backup, it's all about how quickly you can get back online. You can get back to your business, all right? A delayed triage will hurt that. It will mean that instead of getting back up in that 1 to 3 day period, it could take 7 days. It could take a week. What is that revenue loss to your environment? All right, to your company. One of the things that we've heard started using a lot more, I've been using in the past, is security should be a business enabler, not a cost center. If you think about IT and security as a cost center, as a leadership team, you are already behind the ball and you're already losing. Security is a business enabler. It is going to help you to stay online. It is going to help you to continue bringing in revenue. And that's what we want you guys to think about. All right, true MDR requires correlation, automation, and active response. You guys have heard me beat the horse dead talking about correlation. That is the only way a security team, a security operations center can truly help an organization. To have the data in one place and have that data correlated together to understand it. Then, once you can understand the data together, you prioritize it, you start putting automation in place, but you're still going to want those humans to be able to validate and take any additional action that they need to, any additional remediation. You know, if we need to, we've already cleansed the device 3 times, you know, let's do it a 4th because we still saw some weird video file. You still need that human understanding to it. And we'll get into talking about AI and everything and how it's going to help, but AI is only good as you train it. Getting into what that workflow should be, all right? The detection. I would hope that goes without saying that you could only act on something if you detect it. So that is obviously number 1. Then, as I said, correlation. An MDR tool is only as strong as the data sources and the other tools you have in place with it. We talked about XDR, we talked about SIM, we talked about NDR, network detection. All of that put together is how you're going to understand the full picture. Analyzing, triaging, looking at the actionable alerts, not the noise. Then taking that action in the response. But the most important bullet here is the end, that feedback loop. When we start talking about AI, when we start talking about how we're going to get better, the only way we're going to get better is with that feedback loop, is with understanding how long it took us to respond to this, what actions we had to take to actually resolve this issue. Did it take 2 scans on the device? Did it take 4 scans for this particular malware? This is how not only the SOC team, but that AI machine learning component is going to get better. So when we're talking about this, when we're talking about data correlation, it can't just stop at the resolved and be like, okay, everything's done. I'm going to go home and I'm going to go grab a beer because I did my best work today. No, we have to have that feedback loop to help make us better for tomorrow. I have actually seen with command link and other security tools where we have triggered on something on a Monday for customer A. And because of the feedback loop, we have addressed it faster in customer B on Wednesday. That is a true statement, and I can speak to anyone offline about some specifics around that. But that is a testament to feedback in security tools. And I'm not going to say that Command Link is alone in that because I've seen it with other tools that have worked very well, but it is something that you need to be paying attention to, and you need to understand that it is an integral part of this. Getting into just some common use cases with MDR, because it is such a wide umbrella when you're talking about third-party tools. All right, you're talking about ransomware on endpoints. You're talking about credential theft when it comes to third-party tools. You're talking about insider threat and data exfiltration with data governance tools, and then automation around all of these. So when you're talking about MDR, I want you guys to think about it as an umbrella. Excuse me, need another drink. I want you guys to think about it as an umbrella that encompasses the third-party tools we're all using today. Those endpoint tools, those cloud tools, email, data governance, DLP, data loss prevention. All of these roll up to the managed detection and response umbrella for us to be able to understand, again, that full picture. What are some of these results? We're reducing the dwell time and the time to response. We're increasing the efficacy of the SOC team. All right, focusing on real events, real incidences. We're lowering the bar when it comes to false positives. One of the things that I see asked all the time when it comes to talking about any managed service, any SOC team, is what is your false positive rate? That is something that is asked all the time, and I will tell you, it's something that is both easily tracked and one of the hardest things to track because it changes every day, every minute, guys. All right, the SOC team, the data analytics, we are getting threats every minute. So to talk about what false positive rates are, it's very, very difficult. What you want to be talking about is your actionable alert rate. How often are you getting an actionable alert, an actionable incident, and how long is it taking you to resolve that? That is what is more important. Obviously, you want to make sure that the information that your team is getting is accurate. False positives, I'm not going to downgrade it, but there is so much more important KPIs than false positive rates. So I know that's something that is very, very top of mind, but think about some of the next steps when talking about managed services to any vendor, not just Command Link, but any vendor. Start talking about, okay, when you receive an actionable alert, what are your SLAs? How long does it take you to address certain threats? Can you give us some information on that? That is how you're going to understand, okay, when there is an issue, this is how they act. And then the last bullet, again, detection accuracy. That feedback loop is really so important. Building that MDR strategy. And if you guys remember, we have been talking about this the entire month, right? Building your cybersecurity strategy. It's not just a network detection and response strategy. It's not just an extended detection and response strategy. It's not just an SD-WAN and SASE strategy. It's not just an MDR strategy. All right. You look at these bullets. We're talking about integrating all of these tools together. I'm sorry to say you can't do it with one tool anymore. Way back when, yeah, you know what? If you had email security, if you had endpoint security, you were mostly protected. Knock on wood. You can't do that anymore, guys. You need to have this stack. You need to have this umbrella that's encompassing all of these tools that are working together. Now, yeah, that puts stress on budgets. I'm sorry. You need to work on getting those budgets from other sources if necessary. You need to start talking about security and IT security as that business enabler. We have a lot of talking points, and other companies do as well, to help you around that those objections. One of the things that we're going to be doing in our next sessions over the next couple of months is talking about that objection handling, is helping you to secure that budget, because this isn't a nice to have anymore. This is a need to have. This is something that you need to protect your organization. And the sooner that we can get this information to the CEOs, the CIOs, the CISOs of the world, hopefully the CISOs already know this, but they're still fighting that. But this is when we're starting to have those conversations and breaking down those walls. And we want to be here to help you with that. We want to be able to help you with these talking points. But you need to understand that this isn't just a, oh wow, if I can get an MDR, if I can get an XDR, if I can get an NDR. No, you need to go with a vendor or a grouping of vendors that is going to be able to build all of this with you. A big thing that I always talk about is you're never going to build a bulletproof cybersecurity strategy. You're never going to build something that's going to protect you today, tomorrow, and 5 years down the line. But if you speak with a vendor or vendors that is innovating, that is talking about all of these tools together, I will bet my bottom dollar that you're going to be in a better position than if you just went with disparate solutions that talked about addressing threats today. And that's what I really want you guys to focus on and think about. And I couldn't leave without just the little command link plug, because yes, we have talked about command links, network detection and response. We've talked about our extended detection and response. Dom talked about our SD-WAN and SASE solutions, and we also have an MDR solution. We also can help you to give you that umbrella to integrate all of that into our system with our SOC, correlating that information together. So I would love it if you guys had a conversation with us to ask more, but I want to make sure that you're still speaking to a vendor or vendors that will work together to put all this together. This is what I really, really want you guys to focus on, is that you need all these tools together. When we put this package together with all the recordings, all the decks, if that is the only takeaway you guys put together for yourself, your organization, your customers, that you need all these tools together, I will be happy. All right. Now, granted, leadership would be happy if you come to command link for that, but I will be happy if you guys are at least educated to understand that all four of these need to be the core component of your security strategy today, tomorrow, next year, 5 years down the line. So without further ado, I will open it up. I'll check out the questions, but more importantly, again, I really, really just want to thank everyone. We have seen so much success from this, just with attendance, from the communication. Please don't hesitate to reach out to your channel directors, myself, Justin, Dom. We are resources for you guys. I can't wait to start some of the things that we're going to be doing over the next couple months around this, building on this. But again, really just want to thank you. So now let's just check out some of the questions. What's the difference between MDR and a traditional SIM monitoring? Heather, awesome question. When you're talking about a SIM tool, security incident, God, I always forget the E. Enforcement management, I don't know. I always mess up on the E. But what a SIM tool is it's a log aggregator first and foremost, but it's a tool then that you can customize with different rules to aggregate and correlate the information. So what a SIM is missing is the action. That is where a SOAR tool, and I am blanking on what the SOAR acronym is, but a SOAR can then take the action. But it's all around automation. All right, it's all automated. So you would still need someone to be managing that. Where an MDR is going to come into play is an MDR is going to bring in the feeds of those third-party tools, correlate it instinctively, and give you both the automated response and the action that your SOC team can take. So if you want to think about it, where you would need a SIM and a SOAR to understand the data and take that automatic action. You would still need someone to manage it. MDR is kind of a combination of both. There are some limitations on the customization of an MDR versus the SIM and SOAR. I hope that helps, but if anyone has any questions, we could take that offline and do a little bit more of a Dom, you're the best. I always forget these acronyms. So, what level of visibility does MDR provide in lateral movement across networks? Jerry, that's a great question. That is going to be so dependent on the network tools that is feeding that MDR. So I can't speak to what an MDR instinctively can do because it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. But depending on what MDR tool you're leveraging, if it can integrate with a network detection and response tool, that's going to answer what it can see from a lateral movement perspective. So MDR by itself can't see anything. It's all dependent on what tools you have feeding it. Ryan, what if my customer has existing security tools and how would Command Link work with that? Amazing question, Ryan. Command Link would be able to integrate with any of those tools through our MDR. So we would be able to, through an API connection, pull all of those security feeds into our MDR to our SOC team, and then also via the API, take any actions on it. So no matter what those third-party tools are, we would be able to understand, ingest the information, and act on it. Any other questions? Robert, thanks for that. That's an awesome chart that just put in. How does MDR handle alerts from multiple tenants or global environments? Awesome question, Heather. It's all based on the correlation. So it's going to pull all of that data together, and then it is going to understand it. Now, when you're talking about multiple tenants, global environments, you're talking about behavioral analysis. You're talking about understanding, okay, how does someone act? Where does someone act? This is the biggest part of, and actually this is going to tie into Jerry's question around tuning. Because an MDR solution has limited customization capabilities versus a SIM, it is a hard metric to talk about tuning because it is more around not only the behavioral analysis, but as I mentioned earlier, the feedback, how quickly something is addressed. When we're talking about managed detection and response, it is going to look at behavior, but it's also going to understand how quickly a threat was resolved and how efficiently it was resolved. All of this data helps that tuning and that feedback loop. I can't speak to specifics. An example I give all the time is accounting firms. All right. If you look at behavioral analysis for an accounting firm, you could see that for the first 4 months of the year, 5 months of the year, they do a bulk of their work. And then for the additional months of the year, they might not work as much. So from a behavioral analysis perspective, it could take longer for a tool, if you implement it in July, to understand that environment versus, if you implemented it in January. It's hard to speak about tuning just because different verticals are different, but that feedback loop is the best way to helping the tool understand the environment, understand the threats. I hope that answers both of your questions, but because they were similar, but it's just kind of a little bit hard to speak to. But I see your comments, so awesome, guys. Any other questions, comments? Like I said, this isn't going to be the last one. Justin, Dom, myself, your channel directors, we are resources to you guys. We can have one-on-one trainings. We can have trainings with your partners, with your customers. There is so much that we want to do with you guys, not only from a Command Link perspective, but just from an overall education and enablement perspective. We love it, guys. Please don't hesitate to reach out.